Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so today we're digging into a story that it almost sounds unbelievable.
It really does. It's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. A business owner puts $100,000 into a product. Zero sales. Z-E-R-O.
And he actually called himself, in his own words, a miserable failure.
Right, a miserable failure. And then, with the exact same product, he ends up doing over $200 million in sales. It's just wild.
Totally wild. And the really fascinating thing here, the core of this deep dive, is how that happened. It wasn't like some massive product redesign or, finding a magic marketing bullet.
No, what was it then?
It really came down to strategic conversations, a very specific kind of interview feedback process. It shows how the right words, the right framing can create incredible worth.
And open doors, even if things look totally shut.
Exactly. Even in really tough competitive industries.
Okay, so let's get into it. How did this transformation happen? You mentioned the key figures are Mike Hayes and his client, Jeff.
That's right. Mike Hayes is, he's got this incredible background, a two-time Peabody Award-winning documentarian.
Peabody Award-winning, wow.
Yeah, worked at NBC, CNN, learned from people like Johnny Carson, interviewed legends, Oprah, Steve Jobs, Larry King, Tony Robbins.
So he knows how to talk to people and how to get a story.
He absolutely does. He learned from Carson how to interview people like as though they were a guest in his home with hospitality. That genuine connection piece is key.
Okay, that makes sense, hospitality. But then he also worked at CNN.
Right, in LA. And that's where he picked up what he calls the Hollywood promotion interviewing system. Basically, how to not just tell a story, but make it buzzworthy, make people want it.
So it's this blend, genuine connection and strategic promotion.
Exactly. He saw that small and medium businesses, they just didn't have access to that kind of high-level media shaping. It was too expensive, too locked off.
So he created his own system.
Pretty much. He calls them publicity interviews. And his process is... he really deep dives with clients, gets into their product, sure, but also their dreams, their desires.
He's trying to find the core of it.
Yeah, looking for that key, as he puts it, that unlocks the value in the customer's mind. And importantly, he doesn't just do it once. He interviews clients ongoingly, always tweaking, always refining the story.
Okay, so that brings us back to Jeff Wyckoff. Miserable failure, $100 K down, zero sales. What was Mike's first move? It sounds like a mountain to climb.
Well, Mike's approach wasn't just about a quick fix for Jeff. It was more about showing how success really works. It takes perseverance, constant tweaking, challenging your own assumptions.
Not just assuming your first idea is the best one.
Precisely. It really highlights that even when you've hit rock bottom, the right strategy, and frankly, just sticking with it can turn things around completely.
So let's talk about the product itself. What was it? And what was this fatal flaw you mentioned?
Okay, so the flaw was almost laughably simple, but it was killing everything. Jeff initially called his product a cleaner.
A cleaner, that's it?
That was it, that one word. It just tanked the perceived value.
Wow. It sounds so small, but I guess it frames how people think about it instantly.
Yeah.
So how do they figure that out, this interview feedback loop thing?
Right. So instead of just, pushing ahead based on Jeff's initial idea, they decided to launch a conversation, not a product.
Launch a conversation. I like that.
Yeah. And this feedback loop, it wasn't just like one focus group. They got input from everywhere, people actually using the product.
Real users.
Real users, industry pros, people in retail, even folks like new co-hosts, other experts, media contacts, a really wide net.
So they were really listening from all angles.
Deep listening. And that's when the magic happened. Mike kept hearing it. That word cleaner just kept dragging the value down in people's minds.
Oh, he started thinking.
He asked that key question. What if this isn't just a cleaner? What if it's a restorer?
Cleaner versus restorer. Okay, I can immediately feel the difference there.
Huge difference, right?
Yeah.
A cleaner, that's maybe $5.
Yeah.
You mentally compare it to Windex or Lysol, everyday stuff.
Yeah, disposable almost.
But a restorer, that sounds like it saves you serious money. It prevents you from having to replace something expensive or maybe call in a contractor. The comparison shifts completely.
So suddenly, Jeff's $20 price point doesn't seem high for a cleaner. It seems like a bargain for a restorer.
Exactly. It felt like a genius decision, as Jeff put it. And crucially, this wasn't just spin. It came from real perceived value uncovered through all those conversations and feedback loops.
So the deeper lesson here, for anyone listening, it's really about language, isn't it?
Absolutely. Words create worth. It shows that publicity, especially the way Mike does it, isn't just about shouting about your product. It's about listening, reframing, positioning it through a story that connects.
And you mentioned he uses AI now, too.
Yeah, he integrates AI tools to help craft and refine those storylines even faster now. It's about using every tool available.
And the result for Jeff, same product, different story.
Same product, new story, goes from $0 to over $200 million. It literally rewrote his business, his life.
That's incredible. But the journey to $200 million, it wasn't exactly typical Silicon Valley growth, was it? There were some surprising, almost conservative elements.
Oh, definitely. It's fascinating. Get this, Jeff didn't actually quit his day job until the business was hitting $1 million a month.
$1 million a month. And he still had his day job. Seriously.
Seriously. And even then, he was running the whole thing out of like 2 garage offices in Northwood, California. Took him a while to even get a proper office space.
Wow. That's cautious.
Incredibly cautious. He said he put most of the money away for a rainy day. Very pragmatic growth.
So part of this massive success, besides the reframing, was getting access, right? You mentioned access to business and original connections. Why was that so vital in this specific industry?
Well, the whole direct response world, infomercials, direct-to-consumer, it can be very closed off, tight-lipped. Information isn't always shared freely.
Right. Sometimes getting insights or introductions costs you, like, literally a piece of your business.
Yeah, sometimes people want a point or two of your product just for an intro or some advice. So Mike's connections, these original connections he'd built over decades, they were absolutely crucial for Jeff.
Doors he just couldn't have opened himself.
No way. It really underlines how important networking and, having a guide who knows the landscape can be, especially a landscape like that.
Jeff had an interesting way of describing Mike's role in all this. Not a hero, but the bellows.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, I love that analogy. Jeff was clear. Mike didn't promise some impossible dream like, I'll make you $20 million with no effort. His core promise was simpler: to make introductions.
Yeah.
And the bellows idea is that Mike provided the air, the wind that stoked Jeff's fire. Jeff was the one burning, doing the work, but Mike kept his spark alive, gave him momentum when time was really against him. He valued that Mike could, as he said, hold your hand when it's appropriate and kick you in the butt when you need it.
Huh. That sounds like a valuable relationship, someone who tells you the truth.
Tells you what's real and what's not real, super important, especially when you remember Jeff had already failed twice before this.
Right, which brings up the investment part. Mike's system compared to, say, dropping hundreds of thousands on an infomercial right out of the gate.
It was a more conservative way, Jeff called it. Minimal cost compared to the potential losses of just guessing wrong on a huge campaign.
So the takeaway there is, believe your product, yes, but be smart about how you invest in getting it out there. Don't just throw money blindly.
Exactly. Perseverance combined with common sense. Find strategic, cost-effective ways to test and refine, especially with guidance. Which leads to this other great concept Jeff talks about, the sales robot.
This sales robot. Tell me about that.
It's basically what a working commercial or infomercial becomes. Once it's effective, it just works. 24/7.
While you're sleeping.
While you're sleeping, eating lunch, whatever. It's out there selling. Jeff gave some numbers that are just staggering, like $35,000 on a bad night.
35 grand while he slept.
Yeah. And on a good night, a couple $100,000. Selling thousands of units on a Monday morning, maybe 10 or 15,000 units on a Saturday.
That's mind-boggling volume.
He hit a point doing $750,000 a week. That's the power of building an effective sales robot through media.
Unreal. But there's another piece to this endurance, isn't there? Something maybe less talked about, the support system at home.
Oh, hugely important. Jeff gives massive credit to his wife, Mary. He said she always told him, whatever you want to do, do it. I know you'll land on your feet. Apparently, she was not risk-averse at all.
Wow. Having that kind of rock-solid belief from your partner when you're taking huge risks, that must make a world of difference.
It's incredibly hard to sustain that kind of entrepreneurial roller coaster without that foundational support, that belief. It's often the unspoken ingredient.
Absolutely. So, okay, bringing it back to the practical side, marketing costs money, right? It's an investment, not magic.
No doubt. And Jeff is really blunt about trying to go it alone in that industry. He says it will eat you up and spit you out no matter how tough you think you are.
He was close to quitting himself before Mike.
He was. Failed twice, about to give up. It shows that trying to navigate that world solo is just really, really difficult, maybe even foolish.
Okay, so let's try and pull the key threads together from this deep dive. What are the big takeaways for someone listening?
Well, number one has to be the incredible power of language, right? How reframing, finding the right words like restorer instead of cleaner can unlock massive perceived value.
Words create worth. Got it.
Yeah.
What else?
Then there's the strategic advantage of access. Getting those original connections, especially in industries that are hard to break into. Having a guide, a bellows like Mike.
Right, the importance of who you know and who can introduce you.
And sheer perseverance. Jeff failed twice, but he didn't give up on the product. Combined, though, with smart investment, not just blind hope.
Smart perseverance. And the leverage you get from a media message that works that sales robot concept.
Yeah, building something that generates results even when you're not actively pushing it. And finally, don't underestimate that personal support system. It's vital fuel.
Absolutely. So thinking about all this, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, for you listening.
Yeah.
What's the perceived cleaner in your own life or your product or your big idea? What might actually be a valuable restorer if you just found the right words, the right perspective?
That's a great question. And who could be your bellows? Who could provide that spark, that connection, that honest feedback when you need it most?
Or how could you start building your own version of a sales robot? Through better communication, through telling a more compelling story.
Yeah, it's not just business strategy, is it? It's about seeing hidden value, finding the right way to articulate it, and having the grit and the support to see it through.